Hey, it's Ivan time. Favorite time of the day for me right now, guys. I love it. Hopefully, you're enjoying the book. We are going to pick up on page 144 today. Um, and actually, before we do, of course, we're going to do what we always do. We're going to flip back and go to our mental bookmark here so we can uh, picture where we're at in the book, right? We're going to try to comprehend this. We're trying to understand. We're trying to get the most as we can out of this. So, uh, all the way back to 127, if I flip back, is talking about Ivan's starting to remember now, right? He's starting to tell these stories or starting to share a little bit more. These memories are coming back. Um, and that's the question, is could he always remember or why are they coming back now? Um, that's something I want you to think about, all right? Why now? Why is he remembering stuff? What could be the cause? And I think some of you kind of know where we're headed with that. Um, the next thing we got into was Ivan sharing about his toddlerhood, his little baby phase where he was living with Mac. And it was all about everything he broke in the house. All those places he went, from ice cream to milkshakes and French fries to going to movie theaters to riding on bikes and cars. And so he had a pretty good life, but he said there, like, I don't know what I am. Am I a human? Am I a gorilla? But he says the humans don't have a name for what I am. He's the one and only Ivan. We know that, right? We also learned what Ivan's real name was. Do you guys remember that? Mud. You're correct if you said Mud. And why is because he loved to draw with it, right? That was his favorite thing. So we're going to read up until 157 today, all right? So we have like 13 pages we're going to read. In this first chapter here we're going to read today is mind-blowing, all right? So think about this. 9,876 days. Ruby is finally asleep. I watch her chest rise and fall. Bob, too, is snoring. But my mind is still racing. For perhaps the first time ever, I'm remembering. It's an odd story to remember. I have to admit, my story has a strange shape, a stunted beginning, an endless middle. Think about that. A stunted beginning, endless middle. I count all the days I've lived with humans. Gorillas count as well as anyone, although it's not particularly useful skill to have in the wild. I've forgotten so many things, and yet I always know precisely how many days I've been in my domain. I take one of the magic markers Julia gave me. I make an X, a small one, on my painted jungle wall. I make more X's, and more. I make an X for every day of my life with humans. My marks look like this. The rest of the night, I mark the days. And when I am done, my walls look like this. And so on, until there are 9,876 X's marching across my wall like a parade of ugly insects. Okay, do you realize what he just said to us, guys? He's been with humans for 876 days. So that's how much. I went to the back to this, guys, to the beginning when they show us the words. While gorillas in the wild typically gauge passing of time with seasons, I've adopted a new tally of days. So that days, guys, 9,000 days is 27 years. 27 years he's been in with humans. In a domain. It'd be like your bedroom, right? Or even maybe smaller than your bedroom, or with no other gorillas, no other contact with the gorillas. 27 years. No wonder it's an endless middle, like he said, right? No wonder he isn't remembering things. No wonder he doesn't want to think of the future. Would you? If you've been trapped for 27 years? A visit. It's almost morning when I hear steps. It's Mac. He has a sharp smell. He weaves as he walks. He stands next to my domain. His eyes are red. He is staring out the window at the empty parking lot. Ivan, my man, he mumbles. Ivan. He presses his forehead against the glass. We've been through a lot, you and me. A new beginning. We don't see Mac for 2 days. When he returns, he doesn't talk about Stella. Mac says he's anxious to teach Ruby some tricks. He says the billboard is bringing in more visitors. He says it's time for a new beginning. All afternoon and into the evening, Mac works with Ruby. Ruby's feet are looped with a rope so she cannot run. A heavy chain hangs off of her neck. Mac shows her Stella's ball, her pedestal, her stool. He introduces her to Snickers. When Ruby obeys Mac, he gives her a cube of sugar or a bit of dried apple. When she doesn't, he yells and kicks at the sawdust. When George and Julia arrive, Mac is still training Ruby. Julia sits on the bench and watches them. She draws a little, but mostly she keeps her eyes on Ruby. Bob watches too. He's hiding in the corner of my domain under Not Tag. It's raining outside, and Bob does not like damp feet. Ruby trudges behind Mac, her head drooping. Endlessly they circle the ring. Sometimes Mac slaps her flank with his hand. The flank is like right here, on the side. Suddenly Ruby jerks to a stop. Mac pulls the chain hard, but Ruby refuses to move. Come on, Ruby, Mac's almost pleading. What is your problem? She's exhausted, I say to myself. That's the problem. Mac groans. Idiot elephant. Idiot human, Bob mutters. Walk, Ruby, I say, although I know she's too far away to hear me. Do what he says. Walk, Mac commands. Now. Ruby doesn't walk. She plops her rump on the sawdust floor. I think she might be tired, Julia says. Mac wipes his forehead with the back of his arm. Yeah, I know. We're all tired. He pushes Ruby with the heel of his boot. She ignores him. George looks over from the food court, where he is wiping off tables. Mac, he yells. Maybe you should call it a day. I'll close up. Mac yanks on Ruby's chain. She's as anchored as a tree trunk. He pulls harder and falls to his knees. That does it, Mac says. He brushes sawdust off of his jeans. I'm through playing around. Mac stomps off to the office. When he returns, he's carrying a long stick. The gleaming hook on its end is almost beautiful, like a silver moon. A sliver of moon. It's a claw stick. Mac pokes Ruby with the sharp point. Not hard, just a touch. I can tell he wants her to see how much it can hurt. I growl low in my throat. Ruby doesn't budge. She is gray, unmoving boulder. She closes her eyes, and for a moment I wonder if she might have fallen asleep. I'm warning ya, Mac says. He breathes out and stares at the ceiling. Ruby makes a huffing sound. Fine, Mac says. You want to play it that way? He draws back the claw stick. No, Julia cries. I'm not going to hurt her, Mac says. I just want to get her attention. Bob snarls. Mac swings. The hook slices the air just a few inches above Ruby's head. See why you don't want to mess with me? Mac says. He draws back the claw stick again. Now move! Ruby jerks her head, flinging her trunk toward Mac. She makes a noise that sends the sawdust scattering. It makes the glass shiver. It's almost the most beautiful mad I have ever heard. Ruby's trunk slaps into Mac. I don't see exactly where she strikes him. Somewhere below his stomach, I think. And I know he must have been uncomfortable, because Mac drops the claw stick and falls down on the ground, and curls into a ball, and howls like a little baby. Direct hit, Bob says. Wow. I'm sure you can make an inference right now, or a guess on where Ruby hit him. Not very pleasant. No wonder he was crying like a baby. But guys, that's He's training her just like Ruby, right? Or just like Stella was. And I think that's what they were scared of. Another life like Stella, trapped in there doing tricks, doing stunts like that. Poor Mac. Mac groans. He stumbles to his feet and hobbles off toward his office. Ruby watches him leave. I can read her expression. Is she afraid? Relieved? Proud? When Mac is gone, George and Julia lead Ruby from the ring. It's okay, baby, it's okay, Julia says, stroking Ruby's head. They settle Ruby in her domain and make sure she has fresh water and food. Before long, Ruby is dozing. Dad? Julia asks as George locks Ruby's iron door. Do you think Mac would ever hurt Ruby? I don't think so, Jules, Mac says. At least I hope not. Maybe we could call someone. George scratches his chin. I wish I could help Ruby, but I wouldn't know how. I mean, how could I call? The elephant cops? Besides, George looks down. I need this job, Jules. We need this job. Your mom, the doctor bills. He kisses the top of Julia's head. Back to work, you and me both. Julia sighs and reaches for her backpack. She removes a piece of paper and a bottle of water in a small metal box. Homework first, George says, wagging his finger. Then you can paint. It's for art class, Julia explains. We're doing watercolors. I'm going to paint Ruby. George smiles. All right, then. Just don't forget your spelling. Dad? Julia asks again. Did you see Mac's face when Ruby hit him? George nods. Yes, he says solemnly. I did. He shakes his head. Poor Mac. He turns away, and then do I hear him laughing. All right, guys, we're stopping there. Hope you enjoyed today's reading. Check for activities to do next.